a Wednesday edition of Southern Fried Sports. Brent, as we bring you on here, as always, first of all, great to talk to you. I guess like a lot of people who cover not only Southeastern Conference football, but college football in general, pretty big surprise by the way things played out Monday night here in the San Jose and Santa Clara area.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, I'm sure you will be glad to be home and glad to stay home for a few days. And Trev, I'd be remiss if I didn't say for 10 seconds, Bruce Arians at Tampa Bay, Freddie Kitchens, a new coach at the Cleveland Browns, with those Alabama ties. There's some irony, and life is amazing, is it not?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of Alabama fans on a particular late November night in 1997, maybe down at Auburn, would have anticipated that both those guys would be simultaneously head coaches in the National Football League. But Bruce Arians, 1 year after announcing his retirement, Brent, Bruce retired almost a year to the day that he is named head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce and Freddie obviously worked together there in Arizona. And how about Freddie Kitchens taking over as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback? Just an incredible turn here of events for the former Alabama quarterback and Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it'll be amazing to see what he does with Baker Mayfield, and people I don't think give Kitchens enough credit for what he's done over his life too, and working up the coaching ranks. But back to the task at hand here. I was surprised as anybody, frankly, with what had happened. I mean, I knew that these teams were even in many ways. Certainly, kudos to Dabo and what he's done with that staff and that program and creating that culture there. But I think there are just things that happened in a program's history from time to time that that's frankly a chance for them to get to maybe a midpoint, maybe a pivotal point, and I think this is the way that it is for Nick Saban and the coaching staff and philosophy and things like that. And I don't mean he's got to change everything, but I think he knew there were some things that had to get fixed, and this certainly brought it out Monday night.
You know, Brent, it's an annual occurrence with the Alabama program in terms of turnover as it relates to the NFL draft from a personnel standpoint, but also support staff, coaching staff. We see it each and every year. With success, that sort of becomes standard. And also, if we're being totally honest about it, working in this Alabama program isn't for everybody, not for an extended period of time. Now, the winning is great. The opportunity to advance is great. But for some individuals, it's a couple of years and move on. With all that being said, compared to some previous years, when you talk about that upcoming NFL underclassmen draft deadline on the 14th, it's rapidly approaching. And the rumblings that we've heard in coaching circles in the last week or so, you anticipating maybe more turnover when we look at personnel and staff combined than maybe we've seen in some years under Nick Saban?
Well, it may be. I think it's going to be interesting, obviously, Tosh LaPoy being the center of this as the coordinator, or at least the co-D coordinator. I mean, there are rumors this morning about Kirby Smart trying to lure Tosh to Athens. Of course, Smart's got to deal with his own stuff with Jim Chaney moving to Tennessee. So yeah, I think that's true. And look, to me, Trav, right now, the two things they've got to deal with are obviously the deficiencies that they've got on defense. I mean, obviously they've got to get guys back and healthy again, but they just didn't execute anywhere near where they are. And you saw the continuity on Clemson staff and Brent Venables, and you and I both remember at Oklahoma, and early on at Clemson, they wanted to run Brent Venables out too on a rail. And look, I think not only do you have that situation on defense, but to me, the kicking game's been a colossal failure this year in a lot of ways on extra points and field goals and kickoffs and you name it. So there's certainly no shortage of things to work on during the off season.
Yeah, you can even include the punting situation in there as well. Mike Bernier, give him credit. The walk-on improved that situation, but it was hard not to, given what we saw from true freshman Skylar DeLong early in the season. You want to talk about big off seasons for returning Alabama players? You won't see Skylar DeLong on a lot of those lists, but he may be a top 5 guy in terms of trying to get Alabama at least somewhere close to that neighborhood it was in from a punting standpoint with J.K. Scott from 2014 to 2017. So Brent, as Alabama heads into this offseason, is the to-do list in some ways very similar to what it was a year ago at this time after Alabama had won a national championship?
Probably, to some degree. I mean, obviously, I think the big thing this week is and listen, there's some guys who I know are flirting with the league, but who really need to come back. I mean, Mac Wilson's got to come back. I mean, Mac couldn't even line up in where he needed to be in the college game, much less in the NFL. Raekwon Davis need to do the same thing. It'd be a great luxury if they had Josh Jacobs coming back, but that may not happen with family considerations. But again, I mean, they're just in a lot of this stuff. There's no doubt about it. We talked about it last year. Is that the secondary's got to improve? That's got to get fixed. I mean, you just can't continue to allow 300 yards per game passing against good competition. And frankly, the linebackers gave them very little this year. A lot of that was injuries, and a lot of it was just kids not ready to play, and they didn't really have the push we thought they'd get from the D line. So obviously, field goal kickers in there again, and obviously they got to retool some on the offensive line. I mean, I still say that there's enough there to make another run and probably be playing Clemson again next year, but it's going to be crucial what happens the next 2 or 3 weeks and 2 or 3 months.
Based on what we've seen and heard so far from some teams around the Southeastern Conference looking ahead to 2019, Brent, I'm going to give you 3 clubs, and they're all in the SEC West. And here on January the 9th, I want you to list them in order of what you project as far as wins, as far as how many games these teams or which teams are likely to win the most games in 2019. I'm going to give you Texas A&M, I'm going to give you Auburn, and I'm going to give you LSU. Rank those 3 for me right now in terms of how they'll, which will win the most games chronologically in 2019.
I'm going with A&M. I think Mon coming back. Kevin Elko there another year. Mike Elko there another year as the coordinator. That's is going to help them a lot. I'll go with LSU number 2. But they've got to do something offensively. Ron Higgins wrote a good article on them and said that they're going to have to start averaging 40 points a game if they want to get into any kind of championship discussion. And I'll go with Auburn 3. I mean, I get the fact that a lot of these guys are coming back on defense, but the reality is their offense, and particularly the offensive line, they have not recruited well. They'll have a new quarterback. I think it'll be Bo Nix, but there's only so much freshmen to be able to do, I think, immediately with that one. So I'll give you A&M and LSU and Auburn at this point.
Yeah, Auburn's going to be fascinating because I think Auburn, compared to this season, going to fly under the radar a good bit more, but have essentially a lot of the same team coming back. That may benefit Gus Malzahn and his team. You said it. The quarterback situation has to be figured out post Jared Stidham. But everywhere around that spot from a skill position perspective looks pretty good. Darius Slayton's going to move on to the National Football League, but you got some young stars, some budding stars in Seth Williams. The Tuscaloosa area had a great true freshman year. Anthony Schwartz showed you some dynamic playmaking ability in 2018. You've got some backs that have done some good things. Jatarvius Whitlow, chief among those, but I think you hit on it too. And until that offensive line gets back to the standards that we've seen when Gus has had his very best offenses, either as a coordinator or as a head coach, that's the $1 million question for the Auburn Tigers moving forward. Let's talk about head coaching positions. I know we don't talk NFL football a lot, but how about Cliff Kingsbury going 35-40 at Texas Tech, taking a coordinator's job at the University of Southern California, and then failing upward from there to head coach of the Arizona Cardinals? What do you make of all this, Brent?
Well, listen, timing is everything. Trav, would he have gotten this job 5 years ago?
No.
But what's happened in that league is they've gone from, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but they've gone from 3 yards in a cloud of dust and playing defense to mirroring the college game a lot more, particularly with these quarterbacks and how they've improved. And I think Kingsbury just kind of landed in the right place at the right time with his philosophy. There was even a Twitter article today on would Mike Leach work in the NFL. I hope not, because I never want to see him leave college, Trav. I would like to see him come in to the SEC at some point. But yeah, that's it to me, because I don't think he'd gotten a look 5 to 10 years ago, would he? But now with them with spraying the field, throwing the ball the way they are, he's one of the guys in demand.
You said it. Timing is everything, and air raid principles, college passing game principles in general, are in vogue in the National Football League. I think a lot of that has to do with the NFL's having to adapt to a lot of those principles, because that's the way the young quarterback is being brought up. These are the systems that he is playing in from Pop Warner through middle school, high school, and into college. So it's kind of working that way because of that as well. But also the season that Patrick Mahomes has had with the Kansas City Chiefs, and that connection with Mahomes as his college coach, although it would lead you to ask the question, I would think, well, why wasn't Tech better, with Patrick Mahomes than it was? I mean, Cliff Kingsbury went 35-40, okay, at Texas Tech. And his conference record in the Big 12, 19-35, Brent. So that tells you that even of those 35 total wins he had, there were more than a few against, group of five or even FCS type competition. And here he is, head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I wanted to get a little bit more into the Jim Chaney situation with you too, as well, at Tennessee. We had heard rumblings about that as far back as a week and a half ago. We talked about it here on the program. I guess in a lot of ways it makes perfect sense from a fit standpoint. Chaney has experience in that program. And it sounds like, based on a report from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, a lot of money coming Jim Chaney's way for a 3-year deal that maybe Kirby Smart wasn't all that interested in matching.
Now, the reports I've seen was Georgia was willing to go to about 1.5, but they wouldn't budge above that. Now, here's the funny thing about this, and in understanding SEC football, you will appreciate this and understand this, is the Georgia beat writers texted one, asked, and just to see what he thought, and he said, it was a surprise, but it's not a big loss. The big thing is he just got to keep Sam Pittman, the offensive line coach, and frankly, and I give Chaney credit because, I mean, they have improved as far as the offense has gone from 85 yards per play in 2016 to 7.06 and this past season. But Georgia beat writers, Trav, will tell you that He's not a great loss. Tennessee beat Riders, where we'll tell you he's the best OC in the league, which is amusing with all that. But, I mean, he is well known. He has done a pretty good job, and I guess it depends on who you talk to with that along the way. And what also intrigues me is, and you probably heard this too, but several reports about maybe T. Martin coming back and joining that Tennessee staff too.
Yeah, I guess T could be a standalone quarterbacks coach potentially.
Yeah.
With the Vols after being dismissed from the USC staff out there with Clay Helton as the offensive coordinator for the Trojans in 2018. Well, Brent, as always, great stuff here on the program. We always appreciate you taking the time. Another college football season behind us. What does Brent Beaird do, for crying out loud, in the coming days and months?
Well, we'll follow hoops, recruiting, spring ball, magazines, and then we're back at media days. And Trav, I'm sure you can appreciate that this got my attention yesterday as we leave here. Next year's national championship game on January the 13th. And listen, this one's already behind us for a couple of days. This time next year, Trav, we're still 4 or 5 days away from the championship game.
And back where it should be in New Orleans, Louisiana, compared to the South Bay of Northern California. So there you go. Yep, it'll be here before you know it. Well, Brent, again, thank you. Can't thank you enough for your help here on the program as always. We'll do it again next week.
Good. Be safe coming home, pal. Talk to you soon.